Welcome back. Time for Women at the Forefront. We look at what women are doing in their capacities to help and assist the communities in different fronts. My guest this morning, Joanne Mwachi Omolo, is the Director of East Africa at World Reader, a conversation centered around digital learning in our country. Karibu sana to the program.
Asante sana. Good morning, everyone.
All right. Now, let's just start by understanding what World Reader is all about. What exactly does it do?
World Reader is a digital reading organization. We work with partners and through partners to implement digital reading programs. We have a history as to why we are doing digital reading. This is the era of technology, and we find that there are many children who have been left behind in terms of reading for different reasons. Now, we as an organization believe that digital or technology has a place in bridging that gap. Now, I know that there may be argument that perhaps the digital divide can increase because of other issues, but we truly believe that we can bridge that gap through implementation of programs and approaches that allow those that are farthest left behind to actually catch up. So I'll be talking a little bit more as we go along about how we are actually doing it.
Before we get to the how, which set of persons do you deal with? What is the demographic?
Our target audience is more or less bottom of the pyramid and
the
rural. Yes, because many times attention is not given to those communities when it comes to digital solutions. You will find that there are many programs in place addressing many challenges that those vulnerable communities have, but digital is not always available to this case, to these type of audience. And so we took on that fight and said we will actually focus on the lowest of the pyramid, middle to lowest, and help them catch up.
So from what I'm getting from is that this is largely those from in the peri-urban as well as the rural areas, is
yes.
it? Now, looking at that and just going back to where we were even in 2020, when particularly schools closed, for instance, and children had to learn online, we saw how there was a sharp divide in access of the digital platform and the online materials, the phone, the data thereof. So when you talk about this digital learning and access of these books on such kind of platform, then how do you go about it, knowing fully well that we still have areas whereby internet is still a problem?
I think I have to say that COVID caught us all off guard. We were not prepared for it. And of course, at the time, there was competing priorities in terms of what needed to be done. But regarding addressing issues around digital, one of the things we focus on is using of mobile phones. Mobile phones are available in the home. We have an application that we have built called BookSmart. It's free to use, which means that any individual wishing to read and has a data connected phone can actually access reading materials. This is not curriculum. The idea behind this reading is to help children maintain the skill of reading and not lose it when, challenges such as COVID happen. How do we go about it? The application has versions that are offline. So it means that you can be able to, on your phone, download some books and read. And there is a lot of rationale behind why that reading is happening. The other thing I'll say is this. I know that in these communities, looking at peri-urban, looking at rural, looking at what we call the urban poor, people who are living in low-income areas in Nairobi, they have a fairly decent job, but the rigors of living in the city make it really difficult to afford a lot of services. So looking at that, that audience, there are community approaches that we use. It could be a library within the community, public libraries and community libraries. It could be a school within the community. It could be a center within the community where these children are sent to have these sessions with with a volunteer who is usually a parent or a community member, so that they are reading, they are doing activities, they are engaging. Within those books, we have activities. One is usually a play activity, because children are supposed to play. Another is a literacy activity, which helps them build reading skill and language skill. And then another one is a social emotional learning activity, which helps children understand their emotion. You can imagine when COVID first hit us, how difficult it was for children to understand why they're not allowed to play outside, why they can't be with others. So the social emotional learning activity allows or provides a platform where children are helped or assisted to understand what's going on around them. At the back of that, we work with teachers, so we train them on how to handle that integration piece, because some of the teachers have not actually used technology to teach. So we train them on how to handle the piece. We use the schools, the voice of authority, as advocates to get parents on board. We have a lot to do, because we are all still learning from our experiences of COVID, but I think we are doing something important. I think I'd also add that one of the things that I learned, and with experience, is that audience that we are focusing on don't feel empowered to use digital resources. They feel disempowered. They say, those digital devices are wale wakule. It has nothing to do with them. And so one of our campaign messages is anyone can use digital resources. And so bringing the digital resources into the community, into the schools within those community, showing them how to use those digital resources, how to integrate that kind of reading, and how to sort of open up your mind when you open a book and you read and travel around the world and experience things through the eyes of others. Then they realize, actually, this is something that we can do.
Now, the way you're saying that with the specific demographics that you deal with, the way they say hii ni ya wale wakule, and you see, you can keep saying that there's a missing link to us accessing, you know, this digital platform, so that we can be able to access the digital learning at the end of the day, and the way we want the state to do A, B, C, and D to ensure that this is actually reached across. But then again, you realize just from what you've said that first of all, it starts with your mindset, because if they would say hii si yetu ni ya wale wakule, in terms of even of your campaign messages, how do you go about telling them that this is actually for everyone? Because you realize with the people that you deal with, phones, internet, they're not the top of their priorities. Things to do with the digital platforms or anything to do with the digital space does not top their priority list. So how do you go about just ensuring that, first of all, you change their mindset to understand that this is important before you can even get to the learning itself?
COVID was one of the scariest things that happened to any of us. It took away a lot from us, but COVID also accelerated a lot for us that needed to happen anyway. I think about something like the digital resources that are available through the Ministry of Education, the Kenya Education Cloud. Because we went towards digital learning, we became aware that actually there are resources that we can use. Now, I will put a caveat and say a lot of that demographic were not fully aware of what was going on. And so organizations such as World Reader come into that space, and through the messaging that we do, through the programs that we do, actually raise awareness around the opportunities that lie, not just with our organization, but what the Ministry of Education is doing, what other organizations are doing. Think about CBC and the challenges that people are expressing. There is a digital learning thread that cuts across the entire curriculum. Parents are struggling, teachers are struggling. What do we do? Organizations such as ours help to bridge that divide, because we go in and we begin to do the how-tos. What we do is complementary to what the government is doing, and so we do sometimes projects, small portions, building that awareness so that we can bring that demographic to the level of the, say, the middle income average technology users.
Yeah.
You mentioned that phones and internet are not a priority. I agree with you in this sense that these households have competing interests, competing needs. Somebody is trying to figure out, do I put food on the table or do I buy data bundles? Now, something interesting happened during the worst of COVID, 2020, 2021. We learned that a lot of people sold their phones to put food on the table. But a lot of people bought phones to actually access, you know, whatever material that was being distributed.
So it was a 50-50.
It was 50-50. It was very interesting. Organizations that are doing, especially for class 8, this we observed quite a bit, who do SMS type of learning. They send you the questions and revision papers and what have you. There was an increase in purchase of phones for people to access those materials. WhatsApp is a very powerful channel in Africa for communication, whether it's learning materials or whether it's entertainment, whatever it is. WhatsApp is very powerful. During COVID, there was a significant increase in formation of those communication groups, whether it's teachers and classrooms, schools and parents. That kind of thing was happening a lot because that's how people could get messages across. And so an organization such as ours then plugs into a space like that and says, okay, these are resources that you can use with your child at home and at school. We have teachers who are very pleased because books are expensive, and now they have a free-to-use app that has hundreds, thousands of books that they can access. And so reading time becomes very critical because we are not saying the child will have the phone, the teacher will have had the phone, they will have read the story, and so reading time, the teacher can read the story again and engage with the children at in the classroom. And at home, parents can do the same. Now, I'll say that for parents, of course, there are challenges because parents have to go to work.
Just hold it there. We'll come to that in a bit. But let's go backtrack a bit on that digital space, because I mean that's also what we're talking about this morning, the digital learning. So, in your own analysis and even with the areas you've been able to cut across, how would you assess? Are we almost there yet? Do we have a long way to go to bridge this digital gap? Because as you said when you're beginning, the world is getting digital. We are moving into the technological era. So where are we in terms of bridging this gap?
I'm not going to assign a percentage to it because it depends on so many different factors. But I think as a nation, Kenya has made a lot of progress.
So and I think at least somewhere.
We are, I can say this with confidence, we are ahead of many of our counterparts on the continent. And this has come in different ways. I'd say the first thing is all government services are online. Huduma is online. You go into a center and you do something.
Citizen is online.
E-Citizen is online. So that already provides the basis for engaging with technology. So while the individual may not be able to use technology, for example, they can go into a cyber and have the attendant at the cyber do something for them. Their mindset, they're already aware that this service is on a digital platform. When we look at medical services, there are so many apps and so many ways in which you can access those kind of services, which means you're already predisposed to using or engaging with technology. I've talked about CBC, which has that digital thread in it. Even the child in the most local school, they may not have digital resources at that particular school, but somewhere in their mind, somewhere in the mindset, the parent knows, the child knows that they will come across digital resources. And so the stage has been set for us to actually come and then provide reading support where we are building and working towards the 21st century skills, which will include problem solving, communication, collaboration. The stage is there. We need to leverage that stage and actually build up the reading skills. A final comment around that demographic. if we don't, organizations such as ours, World Reader, if we don't support them to build that skill, in another 10 years, they will be worse off than where they are now.
So it means as we've already started, let's continue on that trend.
Let's continue with it, yes.
All right,
yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. And I hear you. Now, I hear you speak, and I can clearly just, draw the fact that this is holistic. It encompasses the children, the teachers, the parents. It's an holistic kind of program. But is there a way to sort of like, should I say, monitor, so to speak? Because they say, if you want to hide something for an African, do it in the book. Could be a physical book, could be an e-book. Is there a way to monitor, the learning as it goes on?
I found this interesting. We've had this conversation with a lot of experts. The question was, do Kenyans read? And people say no. Actually, the Kenyans read. They read for exams. There's a lot of reading that happens for exams. Yeah. Kenyans read what they want to read. They read inspirational content. So depending on the categories that you are reaching, the reading is different. What we are trying to build back is a culture of reading for the joy of reading. Enjoyment. Yes, just reading to learn, reading to know. We are not talking about studying specifically. We are talking about reading. The studying falls naturally into that space. Is there a way to monitor? When we work with projects, we have built on that BookSmart app that I talked about, we have built a backend. And so we can be able to observe and see what the behavior on the devices is. As long as one has downloaded the app and is accessing it, we can be able to tell, how often they are reading, time spent on reading, what they are reading in terms of what books are popular, what languages are popular, things like that we can be able to monitor. But that's a lot more project-based because it's a little bit more difficult to monitor everything, say at national level. But for as long as there is usage on the app, we can be able to identify that behavior and see what the engagement is. Yeah, I would also add that we are GDPR compliant, so we are not collecting any individualized information, but we can be able to tell you, for example, there are X amount of readers in this region, in this country. Yeah.
Now, since you largely deal within the East Africa, so that's just even beyond Kenya, and you say that in your own assessment you can be able to tell that there are X amount of readers in this region, in that region. When you compare, for instance, Kenya and Tanzania, between these two countries, where would you say we have more readers and why? Because we want to impart this knowledge.
So I'd say we have more readers in Kenya just because we have a lot of content in English. We have fewer readers. So
Kenyans are readers?
Kenyans read what they want to read.
As you said.
Yes. For Tanzania, you know that the national language for Tanzania is Kiswahili. And so when learners transition from primary to secondary school, they also transition the language of instruction. So in primary school, it's Kiswahili. In secondary school, it's English. That transition is something that has to be addressed. And so you will find that Kiswahili is very popular there. English is a little less popular, and I think it's just because of the policies that exist there. But when we transition, for example, when we are working through a project, then readership becomes high.
So again, how can someone be able to access this? Let's assume someone is watching and they really want to be part of this program. They want to be able to access, this kind of books, the different kind of books, depending on whatever fancies them. Is there like a process to it, like a registration? How does one go about it?
It's two things.
Okay.
The first one, go to the Play Store and look for BookSmart. World Reader, BookSmart. It's that simple. Download it, and immediately you download, you can start reading. It's a free-to-use application. Now, you can choose to register a name, an account, because you want to register an account. That is useful in getting sort of like recommended books and things like that. But basically, you go to the Play Store, you download the app, you install it, and you can start reading. For those who are not using Play Store, they're using iOS, they either have a feature phone, which we normally refer to Mulikamwizi, or all the names in between, as long as it's data connected, or for iPhone users, the Microsoft phone users, those ones just go to the URL basically just go to the web and search for Booksmart. It will give instructions on how to download the books, and immediately you can start reading. The books are categorized, so you can choose what you want to read. Booksmart focuses on, say, age 3 to 12. And so you might see science books, you might see fun stories, whatever it is. Go ahead, download, read.
So it does not discriminate depending on the gadget you're using. As long as you have it, you can be able to access.
You can be able to access it, yes. Data connected, eh?
Data connected.
Yes.
That's how we began by understanding where we are in the digital space.
Yes. Now, for for those who are using like the Mulika Mwizi,
yes,
which is they're popularly known, in such cases we try to do programming, where we are actually bringing communities into our space, and then we set up what we call a digital package, a projector and a tablet, and then we plug it in, and then we have a community of readers.
So you go all out.
We have to. Somebody has to do it. So usually that is programmatic, I must add.
Yeah.
But yes, we would be very pleased if we could have one digital package per X number of people in a community, so that they can come and read and engage and do that kind of thing. Many other things develop out of that coming together, but our focus for now is reading.
Yes. Joanne, what has been the success stories, particularly from these vulnerable communities that you largely deal with?
Success stories are very personal. I have learned. I know of a young lady from Kibera who taught herself how to read Spanish and speak Spanish.
Just from
She would download,
platform.
We gave her the initial device, and she's a linguist, she had interest. She would download the books, and she would download the modules, and she taught herself. I know of a young man from Kibera also who said he would never have read about Nelson Mandela because nobody takes Nelson Mandela into the slums. But by having this community library, community project, he gets to read about mentors and heroes and people that he is interested in. Last year, we tested a program, a digital reading program in ECDs. We were able to reach 78 of them and trained 275 teachers. About 12,500 kids benefited from that. In the big picture, it looks very small.
Yeah.
But in a community where nobody is getting anything, it is significant. That teacher goes out and says, I can actually access content on my mobile phone. That parent feels empowered to support their child read on technology, which previously they didn't think about. So like I said, success stories are very personal, but as we work, we are definitely looking forward to increasing our impact. We do much more than the 12,500, but like I said, each of these is individual. Yes.
So each of these success stories is personal and individual, personal to a specific
community,
yes.
Yeah.
As you go. Right, so as you wind down, we touched a bit on that challenge, particularly when it comes to parents. Parents are busy and they're also incorporated in the program. How do you address this?
We learn from our partners. Our partners are our advocates, are our ambassadors. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
We were working in a community where people are picking coffee. They don't have time to be reading on the phone.
Yeah.
The message came from the school to the parents, you need to support your children. From that community, one parent came out and said, I will be the one reading with X number of children, maybe twice a week or whatever. So as we implement, we also learn from our partners. They tell us what works best, and we share with our community of practice and tell them, try this, it might work for you, it might not work for you. So we are always in learning mode as well. So
it's not just learning for the people that you're targeting, but also for you that you're providing this, it's a learning experience.
Oh, it's definitely a huge learning experience. Feedback that comes back to us.
All right.
Yeah.
Your call to action, Joanne.
Call to action, digital resources are there. There are organizations that are there to support you transition that experience. There are many opportunities that lie within that digital space. Reach out. Just reach out. In the meantime, download the app, start reading, experience it, give us feedback, because that is the only way we will learn how to make this experience even much more impactful.
At the end of the day, they say readers are what?
Readers are leaders.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. If you look at it, leaders read a lot. And so if you want to become, leader,
in your own capacity, in your own front, read. Good place to end it.
Thank you very much.
I have been speaking to Joanne Mwachi Amolo, who is the director, East Africa at World Read, of course, talking to us about the impact of digital reading in our country and what she's doing within the organization to help communities, particularly vulnerable in the society, to ensure that they can be able to bridge this gap and learn and read and continue to expound and get skill in the different areas of life. This is where we bring this conversation to a close, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya, this Wednesday morning. I'm Doreen Arange Okello on behalf of the entire team. Asante sana. We do this again tomorrow. Have a beautiful Wednesday morning.